The Users page in MadCap Central is for inviting, viewing, and managing the people who are part of your license. Initially, this page will show just one person, the first individual who logs into Central using your company's license. This person will automatically have permissions to do all kinds of things, including the user administration permission to invite other users. Before you invite users, ask yourself this question. Do I want to invite just one person to the license, or do I want to invite many people? If there are many people you want to invite, you can speed up the process by using Microsoft Excel and creating a CSV file listing those users. And because Central lets you set permissions at the same time that you invite users, you might even want to create multiple CSV files. For example, you might have one group of people that you want to have all permissions. Think of them as administrators. Then you might have another group of people, perhaps they're junior writers, and you want them to only have certain kinds of permissions, not administrative rights. In that case, it would be a good idea to create one CSV file for the administrators and another for the rest of the users. But if you're planning to add only a few users, it might just be quicker to invite them one at a time, instead of creating a CSV file. The more users you have who will share the same permissions, the more sense it makes to create a CSV file. To invite users, click this button in the toolbar. In the dialog, you have two options, to invite one user at a time or to select a CSV file you might have created. Suppose you want to invite one user at a time. In this case, start by entering that person's name and email in the fields at the top. Next, click the User Seat Type field to determine the user's role, either an author or a subject matter expert. An author will have access to many pages and features in Central, but a subject matter expert will mainly have access to the Reviews page. If the user is an author, you can then click the Permissions tab to choose the rights you want that person to have. By default, authors will be granted most of the permissions regarding Flare projects and builds, unless you decide to remove those permissions. There are also several administrative permissions that you can give to authors. If you click the main Administrative Projects or Builds option, all of the permissions below it will be selected. If you click it again, they will all be removed. You can also click each permission individually. The User Administration permission makes you a system-wide administrator. This lets you invite users and change their status. You can also set permissions for other users. You can read all about the other permissions in this help topic. When you're finished completing both tabs, click Send Invitation. So that's the process when inviting a single user, but let's say you decide to use a CSV file to invite lots of people. First of all, keep in mind that the bulk invite is supported for authors only, not subject matter experts. If you want to use the bulk invite process, here's what you do. First, open Excel, and in the first cell of the first column, enter the word email, just like this. In the first cell of the second column, type first name, where the words run together, like this. And in the first cell of the third column, type last name, again with the words running together, like this. Then add the emails and names of the users you want to invite. When you save the file, choose CSV as the file type and give it a name. Now click this button to invite the new users. Leave the top fields empty and click Bulk Invite. Find and select your CSV file. Then you can click the Permissions tab to choose the rights you want that group of people to have. After this, click Upload File. You'll then see the results of the import. This specifies the users who were successfully added, as well as those who were not successfully added for different reasons. You can expand any of these to see the users who will be added or not added. When you're satisfied with the results, click Accept and Send Invitations. When a new user is invited, that person receives an email. The individual must click a link to activate the account and set up a password. From the Users page, you can see all other users in the system. If an invited user has not yet set up a password, this column will show you that person is invited, but not yet actually part of the license. After the invited user completes a password, this will change to say active. Users with a crown icon have user administration permissions. If you've invited many users, especially if they take up several pages, you can use the filter options in the column headings to quickly find the ones you want to see. If you click a checkbox next to any of the users, you can use the other options in the toolbar. By selecting multiple checkboxes, you can perform the same action for all of those users at the same time. This option lets you change an author's status, such as deactivating a user to free up space on the server for someone new. This option lets you change the type of seat for a user, either author or subject matter expert. And this option lets you delete a user from the license. You can click a user's avatar to view that person's profile. If the user is an author and you have the appropriate permissions, you can do things such as assign tasks, assign teams and projects, or change permissions. One final thing. If you choose to make changes to an author's permissions, you'll see an additional drop-down field in the Permissions dialog. If the author that you selected is associated with a Flare project, this field lets you choose that project. In other words, if Global Permissions is selected in the drop-down field, the permissions that are set in the fields below will apply to all of the associated projects. But if a particular Flare project is selected in the drop-down field, then the permissions that are set in the fields below will apply only to that project. That way you can give authors different permissions for different projects. But keep this in mind. If a permission is set with Global Permissions selected, it will also be set for each project. You must first deselect the permission with Global Permissions selected. After that, you can select each project in the drop-down and determine whether that option should be selected or deselected.